I believe it's highly desirable for people to be able to pursue their own values, to have whatever ethnic values they want, provided they do it voluntarily and do not interfere with the freedom of others to do it also. We want a society of variety and diversity. We want a society in which people can celebrate their own special ethnic backgrounds. But that's a very different thing from a society in which there is somehow, which somehow takes ethnic characteristics as a criterion for preference or lack of preference, for a society which moves away from the doctrine of color-blindedness to the doctrine of so-called affirmative action. That's the problem. The problem is, you see, this is one component of a very much broader problem. You cannot achieve, in general, good ends by bad means. And the ends, the desire to correct past discrimination, the desire to improve the conditions of people, and to enable people of all colors, creeds, backgrounds to have a more even start, is an admirable end. But that end is corrupted when you use the wrong methods to achieve it. And the methods of force and coercion are, in my opinion, the wrong methods that do corrupt you, and often react against you.
Don't you think it's through ethnic solidarity that many minority groups were able to make advances in the American society?
Not in the slightest. If you look at the way in which ethnic minorities made advances, it was not through ethnic solidarity. It was through the free market. You can take any group you want to, whether you take, for example, the group obviously I've been closest to are the Jews. How did the Jews make their way? Only in the competitive areas of the American economy. How did the blacks make their way? Only primarily in the competitive areas. The laws, what have been the greatest hindrance? Where are the areas where the blacks have been most hampered? In those areas where government has supposedly been doing something for them. There is no area in American life in which the blacks are more disadvantaged in the kind of schooling they can get. Why? Because it's provided by the government. The minimum wage laws are supposed to be to help the poor, to help the disadvantaged. They are the most anti-Negro laws on the books. Why do we have unemployment rates of 40 to 50 to 60% for black teenagers? Because the law says it is illegal for an employer to hire them at a wage which corresponds to their productivity and to their worth. That he can only hire them if he's willing to pay them charity. It's a law that he must discriminate against people with low skills. First, we give them lousy government schools so they have no skills. And then we make it impossible for them to get job training on the job, by saying to employers it's illegal for you to hire them. And that's why, if you look at the record, you know this is a recent phenomenon. If you go back to the immediate post-war period, before the minimum wage was biting, the unemployment rate for black teenagers and white teenagers was roughly the same. Today, it's 2 or 3 times as high for black teenagers. If you go back to that period, the fraction of black teenagers in the labor force was higher than of white teenagers. Today, it's lower. Why? That's almost entirely a result of the minimum wage law plus the very inferior form of governmental education. Again, what has been the source and the focus of racial discrimination? The craft trade unions. Why? Because they have gotten governmental monopoly powers, essentially, that has enabled them to keep people out. What is the activity, the commercial activity, which has had the greatest degree of exclusiveness of blacks and, in this case, also of Jews? No doubt. For decades, it was banking. Why? Because banks had a franchise from the government. You will search long and hard before you find any minority that has effectively had its rights protected or its opportunities expanded by government intervention in its behalf. Try to find an example.
Okay, but isn't it often through solidarity of a group that they are able to fight government intervention, such as or any group's intervention in their rights, such as overthrowing quota systems like...
Well, let me see. Let me separate issues. I have no quarrel to ethnic solidarity, of course, in the sense of helping one another, and no doubt, by a feeling of of identification and of assisting one another. They have helped one another, of course. But the particular aspect you're taking of it is to say that one evil raises another evil. I agree with you that once you start on the route where you turn to government to control the conditions of entry, then people who want to fight against bad government discriminations have no other choice but to go through the same political mechanism. So I agree with you that they have. But that's as a lesser evil, not as a positive good.
Okay, thank you.